In this video, we will continue to talk about materials in VRAY for 3ds Max. In the previous video, we started to work with materials. We started with the basic parameters and basic channels. And in this video, we're gonna continue and work also with textures and procedural maps so that we can create some more realistic effects. Because using simple values like simple colors or simple values will give us always a uniform effect on the object. When we use textures, we can guide that particular effect onto the surface using the pixels and the black and white mostly, but also darker and brighter pixels. But we're gonna see this in this video, and we're gonna see where it can be applied. So I added here some mirror around my little room here, and so I have this kind of propagation of the scene, this kind of infinite reflections there happening on every side. And these are all the materials that we created in the previous video, like plastic or transparent glass or frosted glass. And we worked with roughness, we worked with glossiness, with the diffuse channel. We saw what are the differences and physically how they are created in the real life. So this what makes materials so realistic, is that they try to simulate what's happening in real life, which is basically a response to light. So depending on how our object will respond to light, we will get different effect. And we have opacity, transparency, roughness, glossiness, and all sorts of differences, all sorts of variety of results that we can get by adjusting the parameters. So these are many examples that we saw in the previous video. In this video, we're gonna continue and make more. And I will delete the statues here because we're gonna work this time also with the walls of this room. So I don't want to have this reflection, this mirror effect. I want to work also with some realistic walls and pavements, like brick wall. And so I'm just gonna adjust here a little bit my room. I'm gonna close up those gaps. You see those black spots there in the renderings? Those are essentially holes in the room. And since I don't have any background for this scene, it's gonna display that black background, which is not really good, it's not realistic, never. So in the following lesson, we're gonna also see how we can affect the background using HDRIs. So let's go back to roughness and glossiness. Now, we saw that roughness is the opposite of glossiness, and so if I increase one, I'm gonna decrease the other basically. So I need to mix them together a little bit. And let's duplicate here. And also, these are the most important textures. So when we search for texture, we usually search for the diffuse texture, which is the main texture. So if I search, for example, texture wood or texture bricks, if I want to create a brick wall, what I'm usually getting here, these are all the diffuse channels. These are all the textures that I would apply on the most superficial layer of my material, which is called diffuse. So it's basically the color, but this time I would not use a simple color. I'm using a combination of pixels, which is basically the image. The image is just a combination of pixels. So when I search for, if I want to be more specific, I can search for texture diffuse bricks. Now, when I see those black and white texture there, those are actually used for bump or displacement, which is a fake 3D effect. It's a fake extrusion that will give us more realism to our material. It's gonna give us that extra step that is gonna then result in more realism. Now, if you're lucky, you're gonna get a complete package with all the textures you need, and usually you should find at least the most important textures that are the diffuse texture, for the most superficial layer, the color layer, roughness and or glossiness, and bump or normal. So these are the most important. We're gonna go through all of those one by one, so don't worry. So I'm gonna create a new Google search bar here, and I'm gonna type texture roughness. So if I search for specifically a roughness texture, I can type that and go directly to search for some roughness texture. And same thing goes for glossiness. Now, usually, again, these are the opposite. So I can turn any glossiness texture into a roughness. I just need to invert the image. So the black becomes white, the white becomes black. Because we talked about the values, the simple values in the previous video. Now, this is not a single value. It's not just like black or white or gray, but we have a combination. We have a pattern here that represents the material that guides the effect. And also, let's type texture normal. Now, this is another way you can create superficial effect, 3D effect. It's going to simulate an extrusion, a relief on the surface. And the same thing goes for bump. So you can either use bump or normal. You can also use both sometimes, but they essentially do pretty much the same thing. And then you have like the displacement, which is a more advanced bump, but we're gonna get to that later. Let's focus on the first one first. But these are the most important ones. This is the one that you need to look for, and if you don't find it, you can also generate this texture yourself. If you use Photoshop, if you use other graphic design application, you can generate your own textures. Just need to do some particular steps, and if you're interested, write in the comments or you can ask for assistance. Just as you search in Google, you can search in the channel for generate normal generator or generate normal, generate bump, and so on. But let's move on, and you can search for textures here in the internet. You can find a lot of images on the web. Just make sure that first of all they should be a square, and check also the pixels. The pixels they should always be square pixels. So 512 times 512 is fine. This is a multiple of 2. Also 1024 times 1024 is good, and 2048 times 2048, which is kind of 2K, it's also good, but it's starting to get a little bit heavy. So try not to get too small textures, but also not too big. So you should always be somewhere in the middle. You should always choose the most appropriate in order not to weight down your rendering, your scene. So if you have small objects, choose small textures, big objects, big textures. Now, if you also type seamless, this is a really important term because it's gonna help you to find the best textures, because best textures, they don't have seams when they repeat themselves. Now, usually we use a small texture and repeat it many times to cover very large areas. This is the first use that we do with textures. So you have these tileable textures and non-tileable textures. When you want to use tileable textures, unless they're actually tiles, you want them to be continuously repeating without any cuts, without any seam. So yeah, if you need tiles do have cuts and do have seams because they're actually square pieces of material. But in all other cases, you want continuity, so you don't want to see those cuts, you don't want to see those seams. You want something that is going to be repeated over and over without seeing those edges, those cuts. So this is why we use the term seamless. And you can also check